You're now watching Sports Bettor's Paradise on the Bet Rivers Network.
All right, Jimmy Ott, Paul Stone, let's look at the big ones this week in college football, the ones that get the best TV ratings. Best TV ratings usually correlate with the biggest handles, so you're going to have some money on it. You want a little angle, up straight pick, analysis, help shape your handicapping. We got it for you here on Sports Bettor's Paradise. Let's go to Alabama and LSU. Bama, 3-point favorite, 3.58.5 on the road here in Tiger Stadium. I think that both of these two teams are pretty comparable, but man, listen, we have seen some big time atmospheres in college football in the SEC this year, and there's been 6 games where it's involved the top 7 teams, and the top 7 teams in the SEC: Georgia, A&M, Texas, Tennessee, LSU, Bama, and Ole Miss. Sorry, South Carolina or Missouri, but just not quite in that class. All these teams still have a chance to get into the college football playoff. The others, I just don't think so. But in all of the cases and I think it was a difference. Tennessee was down most of the game to Alabama. But when they got a spark and they made a play, that home crowd, they really got it going, that kind of pushed them over the edge. I don't think they win that game in Tuscaloosa. Ole Miss at LSU. Ole Miss blew plenty of opportunities in that game to create some sort of cushion. Once LSU got going, man, it was lights out, and LSU wins in overtime. Georgia at Alabama, same thing. I mean, if Georgia comes all the way back to take the lead, Bama wins at home. LSU at A&M, a double-digit lead, could have stretched it out more, but once Nussmeier threw a pick, I mean, that crowd, you see my point. 5 out of the 6, the home team has won. The only one was the best team, the best program in college football the last 3, 4, 5 years, whatever you want to say, the Georgia Bulldogs. My goodness, you don't think they were one of the best 4 teams in the country last year? Give me a break. But their lack of schedule did penalize them. But anyway, they were underdog for the first time in 50 games. The no-respect era where it's overplayed, it was actually valid here, where they were getting points at Texas, and they took care of them. I'm going with the home team here. One thing, 3 check marks in Tiger Stadium. Big-time game, at night, the weather's good. Trust me, they all mean something. Ole Miss, they're all checked. Baby, that thing was rocking. They got a little extra venom when Bama comes to town. One little kink in the armor. There is a tropical depression that is expected to arrive in Baton Rouge around Saturday morning. Could dampen the crowd a little bit, but not enough to make a factor. Give me points at home. I would take it, pick it. I'll take any type of points at home in Tiger Stadium where you know it's going to be lit.
Yeah, this matchup of 2 lost teams Saturday night in Baton Rouge, Jimmy, I think has to be viewed as an elimination game in the 12-game playoff. Alabama, they've dropped their last 2 road games, as you mentioned, 40-35 as a 23-point favorite at Vanderbilt, and then also lost 3 weeks ago, 24-17 at Tennessee. You look at LSU, meanwhile, they're coming off a 38-23 loss at Texas A&M, as you mentioned. But the Tigers, they've won their last 14 home games straight up, dating back to the middle of the 2022 season. So kind of to your point, they're very good at home. Alabama, they also have not been at their point spread best as a road favorite in recent seasons. They are 6-11 against the spread as a road favorite since the beginning of 2021. 5 of those have been outright losses. And LSU has certainly been at their best, you might say, since the beginning of 2010. So basically the last 14 years, LSU 11-4-1 against the spread as a home underdog. And much of that home dog success has come against Alabama. I'm kind of waiting on 3.5. I think these are some evenly matched teams. If it gets to 3.5, I'm definitely going to be with you there on LSU.
Paul, I mean, these 2 venues are big time in Tuscaloosa and in Baton Rouge. I mean, this is the max of 5 that you get for a home field advantage. You telling me this game's in Tuscaloosa? It's 13?
Well, I think even though I agree with you that the home field advantage at these types of venues it should be more, I don't think the line maker goes any more than probably 3.5 or 4. These days. So I guess if we're at 3, we might be looking at I think Alabama would probably be about. I don't think it'd even be that. I think it'd be 7.5 or 8. I mean, there's no way it could be much more than a touchdown, uh,
Okay.
in my
Okay.
opinion. Just
Okay.
off the top of my head, I'm not really putting a
This
fine.
is not just any game that they're playing. So this game will have a little extra juice. This is not a crowd that's going to leave at halftime like UCLA. So we'll see. All right, Indiana and Michigan. Indiana, it's moved down a little bit since the opener at 14.5, 13.5, 49.5. Indiana, again, one of the games depended on where you got the line, but still, I mean, it is, 9-0 straight up, 9-0 against the spread. They are immune to letdown spots. They are immune to situational handicappers. I mean, they just, not only that, how about this, man? 10-0, Michigan State. This is the spot, right? No. 40-something rip from there on, and it was ugly. This is the best coaching job in the country. This is the best coaching job in my lifetime since probably 95. And Gary Barnett with the Northwestern won the Big Ten championship. He didn't have the transfer portal, a little different era of college football. But, man, this is legendary. This is unbelievable what they're doing. Now, the only thing is still that, what is their best win? Is it, a 5-4 team here and there? I mean, it's Nebraska has gone on the skid since they came into Bloomington at 5-1. The overall strength of schedule is not very good. Is the only thing I could try and draw back on this. But, man, they're taking care of business. The Hoosiers, 13.5, 49.5.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana, they're 9-0, obviously. If they beat Michigan at home in Bloomington on Saturday, it will be the first 10-win season in the all-time history of the program. So as you mentioned, Kirk Cignetti, I don't even think you have to think about it if you've got a ballot for Coach of the Year nationally. He is the guy, barring just a complete collapse down the stretch by the Hoosiers. They're 9-0, as you said, but that schedule ranked 81st in the nation by Jeff Sagarin. But what more could they do against that schedule? They're beating those 9 opponents, or have beaten them by an average of almost 33 points a game. So they've handled what has been put in front of them in grand fashion. You got a Michigan team that 10 months ago, they were celebrating a national championship, and now they are 2 touchdown underdogs, essentially against an Indiana team that was 3-24 in Big Ten play in the previous 3 years prior to Cignetti's arrival. But what a story there in Indiana. I like Michigan plus the points, though at some point the tariff gets too high. If it gets back to 14 or higher, I recommend taking Michigan plus the points over Indiana. Might not be a smart thing, but at some point the line and the number just gets a little bit away from a team.
Well, I mean, not only they favor the first time in like 40 games since it played Michigan, but they're favored by almost 2 touchdowns in this one as well. Don't forget at Bet Rivers Prop Packs, earn a chance at $10,000 in bonus money with the Bet Rivers Prop Packs. Place NBA same-game parlays to collect player card prop packs and earn rewards. You win based on how your player performs. Log into BetRivers.com or the Bet Rivers app to place your bet and get your prop pack today. Colorado and Texas Tech. Colorado 6-2. 5 of their last 6. 3.5 on the road here in Lubbock. Total is 62.5. Texas Tech's had a roller coaster season. Started out 6-0, lost 3 straight, and then pulled off their best win of the season. Upset, scoring with 24 seconds to go on a 5-yard touchdown to win by 1 in Tough Ames, Iowa. But like I said, Buffalo's have won 5 of 6. This is also very important for the Heisman race as well. My vote would be for Travis Hunter. My pick, if I had the first pick of the draft, would be Travis Hunter. I know it's tough for a non-quarterback to get both, but still, I mean, you want to talk about historical things. He's doing it. And this is a big win. If they could get to 9 wins, that would really make it tough to keep him from getting the Heisman Trophy. So maybe a little value there as well. But this is a big one on the road here in Lubbock, Paul.
Yeah, Texas Tech, first of all, coming off that victory at Iowa State as a 2-touchdown underdog, they listed yesterday, did the Red Raiders, 14 players as questionable for this home game against Colorado. Most of those players on defense. Both their starting defensive tackles are listed as questionable. Their cornerback, Braylon Lux, also questionable, as is safety C.J. Baskerville. A lot of these, I'll acknowledge, a lot of these questionable players, maybe all, are going to play. I don't think it'll be all, though. I think some will miss the game. Some who play will probably be at less than 100%. So you've got a wounded Texas Tech defense to be certain, and they're facing a Colorado team. I think you could make a valid argument that the Buffaloes have the best group of wide receivers in the nation to go with the quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, who is projected to be a top 5 selection in next April's NFL draft. So they have a very prolific passing game. Certainly Sanders' favorite target is the two-way standout and Heisman Trophy contender Travis Hunter. Hunter, 60 receptions for 757 yards and 8 touchdowns while playing a full-time role on defense as well at cornerback. Just an incredible athlete. Even at full strength in this game, Texas Tech pass defense would be, hard-pressed to defend Colorado's embarrassment of riches in the passing game. Texas Tech is not very good in the back four. They hadn't got a great pass rush. They give up over 282 yards passing through the air. They rank 124th nationally in that category, 8 yards per attempt by their opponent. So I think Colorado's going to pass the ball very effectively against Texas Tech. You got the Red Raiders averaging 34.5 points a game. Colorado comes in at 31.4. I think there's going to be a lot of passes, a lot of points, a lot of plays there on the South Plains of Texas this Saturday. Give me the over 62.5 in Colorado, Texas Tech.
Don't forget our friends at Bet Rivers players can play same-game parlays on college football and NFL games to earn squares. Our exclusive Squares game offers additional chances at profit boosts, bonus bets, and many $10,000 jackpots. Visit BetRivers.com or the BetRivers app for more details. Let's stay in the Big 12 and go and check out those Iowa State Hawkeyes. Trying to get off the mat from that disappointing loss again with 24 seconds left against visiting Texas Tech. That game was back and forth. It wasn't a fluke that they were in position to steal that game from Iowa State. 3.5, 51.5. This is Lawrence, Kansas. And how do the Cyclones respond? And Kansas on the improve a little bit. Jalen Daniels lost his offensive coordinator to Penn State. That was some transition issues there, but they certainly blasted an improving Houston team a couple of weeks ago and gave Kansas State all they could handle. You want to talk about a seesaw game in a Little Apple in Manhattan. Lost by 2 to Kansas State in Manhattan. Nothing to be ashamed of there. Iowa State here on the road, 3.5 and 51.5, Paul.
Yeah, heading into last week's home game versus Texas Tech, you had an Iowa State team that was undefeated, ranked 10th in the nation in the coaches poll, and clearly in control of their playoff destiny. But they lose to the Red Raiders as a 2-touchdown favorite, and now their backs are firmly planted against the wall any way you look at it. Their opponent on Saturday, Kansas, comes in with a 2-6 record. Before the season, they were certainly I think they had Big 12 title aspirations, to be clear about it. But they're 2-6. They've really lost a lot of close games, had some hard luck. 5 of those 6 losses by 6 points or fewer, including that 2-point loss that you mentioned 2 weeks ago in Manhattan to rival Kansas State. The Wildcats kicked a late long field goal, to defeat the Jayhawks there. So coming off a disappointing loss, Jayhawks had a bye last week. I like Iowa State here because they've got their backs are against the wall. Matt Campbell's teams have rebounded nicely after straight-up losses during his career there. Iowa State, 33-16-1 against the spread off a straight-up loss since the beginning of 2015. So they are very good off a straight-up loss. They've already won games this year at Iowa, at Houston, and at West Virginia, so they've played well on the road. 3.5, I don't quite like it there, but if it drops to 3, if we see that at Bet Rivers, I'm going to like Iowa State minus the points over Kansas.
All right, Georgia and Ole Miss, and this is my second play of the high-profile games this week. Georgia on the road, 2.5 and 54.5. Both teams, Georgia 7-1, Ole Miss 7-2. This game last year motivated Lane Kiffin in his roster building. They lost 52-17. Ole Miss actually had a better record last year at 8-1 going into Athens and Sanford Stadium, and they were blasted, and it wasn't really this close. I mean, he knew he had to go get some help up front, especially up front defensively, and he got some guys. There is no doubt. They're actually top 10 in the country in points allowed this year, defensive points allowed. Of course, they're top 10 in the country in offense, and that offense finally got rolling again. This is 700 yards, nearly 700 yards of offense against Arkansas. Place where in Fayetteville, not Little Rock, but in Fayetteville, they lost 8 of their last 9. I mean, it was, and they did not have their biggest weapon, and Harris, and the other receiver goes for 254 and 5 TDs. Ole Miss is playing at home. Well, they're in that top 7 as far as the elite teams of the SEC. Is it an elite venue? 64,000 capacity at Vaught Hemingway. It'll be a home field advantage. It's not Tiger Stadium, College Station, Knoxville, Austin, Athens, or Tuscaloosa, but it is a home field advantage, and I just like the form that they're playing. They're an elite roster. Can the Runts get over their mental hump and play with some maturity and play with not give extra possessions like they did against Kentucky? 3 extra possessions in the first half alone off a dead ball, third down stop penalties. Lane Kiffin knew exactly at that point. But I think he has his team in form. And Georgia, on the other hand, Carson Beck in SEC play, he's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns. Now 11 interceptions on the season and only 10 touchdowns. So he is, maybe could be a little bit distracted, and all of that comes with being a football player of his magnitude. I like the Rebels to win this one straight up. Take any points at home here, plus 2.5.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of games with playoff implications in the Southeastern Conference over the final month of the regular season, and this is certainly one of those games. You know, Georgia at times has clearly, to me anyway, looked like the nation's best team, starting with their 34-3 victory over Clemson in the season opener, and then 3 weeks ago going into Austin to play the then top-ranked Longhorns, just totally dominated on both lines of the scrimmage. The Longhorns won that game 30-15. They have really looked good in those 2 mentioned victories. But at others, you know, to me, they've just kind of looked like another team pursuing a piece of the playoff pie. You know, they look almost mortal. They fell behind at Alabama, as you mentioned, 28-0. They rally to take the lead late in the game, but then the Tide score a touchdown of their own. Alabama 41-34 over Georgia. And then Georgia was fortunate to win at Kentucky 13-12 in week 3. And then just this past week, you know, they're in a tight game with Florida. And a lot of people have theorized that the Gators would have perhaps won the game had their true freshman sensation quarterback DJ Lagway not gone down with injury. So they have had some competitive games that maybe in the past 3 or 4 years have not been that competitive. Ole Miss, meanwhile, they've built much of their 2024 resume by bullying outclassed opponents. But to be fair to the Rebels, they have played, well against some of the top teams in the conference as well. Note to me, they won games at South Carolina and Arkansas by a total of 56 points. So those are 2 pretty good football teams, especially South Carolina. And Ole Miss dominated both of those on the road. Ole Miss's 2 losses, both by 3 losses, came at home to Kentucky and then on the road at LSU in overtime. To me, I'm taking the small dog Ole Miss, as you are, based on that quarterback comparison that you mentioned. Carson Beck, he's thrown a total of 9 interceptions in 3 games this year. So he threw 3 interceptions against Texas, 3 against Alabama, 3 against Florida. So he's got 9 interceptions in just 3 games this season. Jackson Dart, on the other hand, he's thrown a total of 8 interceptions since the start of the 2023 season. So he's thrown 8 interceptions totally the last season and a half. And Carson Beck has 3 games this year where he's thrown a total of 9. Carson Beck, for a championship team, I mean, this is almost unheard of. He has an interception rate this year of 3.8%, which is extremely high. Jackson Dart, only 1.1%. Ole Miss at home, you have to anticipate, although it is difficult to handicap the turnover category, you have to anticipate that Ole Miss might have an advantage in the turnover category based on that quarterback comparison and advantage to the Rebels. I'll take Ole Miss plus the small points as well.
And I know Ole Miss's non-conference schedule was laughable, but this deep in the season to be in top 10 in both scoring and points allowed, that's pretty damn impressive. And that's it. It was this game last year that motivated them. I'm still undecided because Texas won the team that could match up physically with them. They didn't perform well, so I'm it's sort of an incomplete on them. Of the other 6 elite teams, I think these are the best 2 rosters in Ole Miss and Georgia. So I'll take the home team, and I'll take the more consistent quarterback. And, man, they are kicking themselves. They know this is their last bullet. And, they can't lose and get to the playoff because this is one of the best 12 teams in the country. There's no doubt. But their lack of immaturity, that Kentucky loss is bad. Kentucky's going to finish 1-7 in all likelihood in the conference. That's the one that's really going to grab them. LSU, that place was on fire. They did not capitalize. They should have had a bigger lead and should have won eventually, but you don't keep a team hanging around on the road in that type of venue. It's just that simple. These are going to be some great games this week. Got some good ones this week. Our best bets later in the week as well. For Paul Stone, I'm Jimmy Ott here on the Sports Bettor's Paradise on the Bet Rivers Network.